Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today I've got the Eight of Cups as the obstacle and the Queen of Cups as the opportunity. Lots of cups, lots of feelings, emotions, intuitions, the subconscious, possibly culture. Let's look at the obstacle. The Marseille card is symmetrical. It seems like a three, a two, and a three. Whatever that means to you. I surely have my own theories here, but the layout of the cups in the Waite card seems kind of like either it's missing one, or sometimes I see it as a sort of like a five stack and a three stack. But anyway, the the Eight of Cups. This is the obstacle is. I generally look at the obstacle as kind of like if you were to get the card inverted in a reading, right? So the Eight of Cups is it's the perfection. The eight is the highest order of all the perfect, solid, balanced, kind of receptive cards. Uh, the other ones being the two, the four, and the six. And the eight exists. The eight exists kind of purely in the abstract realm. The the four and six are related to people and matters of individuals. The two is very it's very primal of the earth, and this is the opposite of that. This is like a really high concept card. So generally I just kind of think of this right side up as this being like the emotion. So for a lot of people, it could be like love, like the all encompassing, all consuming emotion. For people that have, for people that have a faith in a religion, often this will be something like the the most basic and rudimentary virtue that sits at the core of that whole faith or spirituality. So it could be something like, it could be like modesty, or courage, or devotion, or piety, things like this. So it could be the the perfectly balanced, just that high order concept, not as it relates to relationships, between people, just really just experiencing that on its own in its sort of abstract fullness. And then the Waite card, the illustration to me kind of depicts it already kind of depicts the inverted version of it. Um, it's a person who is turned away from, walking away from that perfection, and the way that number eight, which is supposed to be this perfectly balanced, symmetrical thing, this person is walking away from kind of like an unbalanced version of it. It's not this perfect four by four symmetrical stack. Um, so I certainly find that to be interesting. Um, when if right side up, if this card symbolizes like a devotion to that absolute ideal, I think the sort of inverted obstacle version could be um, walking away from it, not embracing it, something along those lines. Um, One of the positive ways that I read this card is someone who someone who is so comfortable with with not just their emotions, but with their emotional life, with the idea of what emotions are. These things where it's like they come from the deep, they come from the subconscious. um it's it seems to be a very difficult thing to like master master your own emotions to the point where, you know, what would be the optimal outcome? You just stop having emotions? I mean, that's that it sounds like a weird alternative, you know. I certainly think of, you know, some Zen Buddhist monks as some of them having this kind of like they absolutely dissolve themselves out of the emotional plane, but in a way that kind of just sounds like some sort of suicide, you know. It's like, and it is often described as like an ego death where you kind of cease to exist as a passionate human being that's filled with motivations, filled with, you know, with feelings. um, but in a positive sense, I tend to see this card as someone who is so comfortable with this kind of nighttime terrain of the soul, to use that term poetically, of the human heart. You know, someone who has maybe lived lived long enough, or just lived hard enough, experienced enough things, experienced a lot of ups and downs. Someone who's come to terms with just the inexhaustible presence of, um, you know, emotions, moods playing a role in your life, and comfortably navigates this sort of subconscious realm of emotions, this kind of, you know, watery little islands, little jagged, tough to navigate terrain, surrounded by water, only lit by moonlight. You know, kind of sounds like the subconscious to me. You can't really clearly navigate it. It could be difficult. It could be dangerous. But this is someone nonetheless who, you know, has experienced enough that they're comfortable with it, that they're open to it. They don't run away from it. You know, they're happy to navigate this place. Um, and so that being the positive interpretation that I have, the negative one would be, you know, something along the lines of like excessively excessively seeking out this kind of e- emotional place. Um, it's not uncommon for people to, just torture themselves with a particular feeling. To, you know, often if people feel guilty about something, for instance, they'll deny themselves happiness. They'll seek out ways to make their life hard for themselves. Um, they'll they'll turn away from the things that, um, they know could be really good or enjoyable for them for, you know, for warped reasons. I think that this card here might represent that kind of that kind of obstacle. It's either, you know, it could be like either refraining from allowing yourself to roam this emotional territory, um, or forcing yourself yourself in there, but not in a. I'm kind of I'm kind of thinking of like of a scenario where somebody like chooses to go to a particular part of town or to a particular country. You know, they choose to put themselves in a certain environment, but then they refuse to interact with that environment in a holistic way. They they you know, they specifically seek out only some aspects of that terrain. They like almost like imprison themselves within, um, a certain place emotionally. I feel like it could symbolize a state like that, self pity, things like that, self denial, and then the opportunity is the Queen of Cups. Queen of Cups is the she is the she is the perfect she is the perfect manager of the realm of feelings, emotions, virtues, intuitions. Um, she is the she's she's got the whole internal she's got the whole internal economy of feelings in check. The kings the kings are kind of on the border, you know. The kings are, they would be pretty good with managing the internal economy if they weren't constantly considering and looking outside. So, and neither position is ideal in a sense, because if if you think about something like countries as a metaphor, um, a country that is perfectly balanced within, but completely ignores its relationships with other countries in the world. You know, as long as it doesn't have to interact with those countries, as long as those countries don't exert any sort of influence, positive or negative, as long as you've got this bubble stasis that, sure, you can manage all the parts inside maybe, um, but yeah, as soon as something changes, as soon as changes from the outside influence the system, it's, you're not prepared for it. The king, the kings are constantly looking outwards, and they're constantly managing things, kind of in preparation for what might happen when your realm comes into contact with another realm. But that means that half of their attention is focused away from managing the internal. So it's like you could do a really job managing the internal, but leave yourself wide open to influence from the outside that you're not at all prepared to deal with, or you could kind of be half and half and never really fully commit yourself to one or the other. Um, but the queen is really good at managing all of the internal feelings, and I think there's an interesting difference between the Waite queen here and the Marseille queen. Marseille queen's got this she's got this dagger, or at least I've seen it described as a dagger more often than as a wand or something along those lines. And particularly this this wavy curved dagger, which these were often associated with weapons that are designed to cause, you know, they're designed to cause suffering. They're not just, it's not just a regular dagger, a regular sword. It's like, how can we make this thing be more painful if someone gets cut with it? Kind of like barbed weapons and things like that. So in the Marseille, she's kind of, I think she's kind of a balanced, she's kind of a balance of being able to manage good feelings and bad feelings. Being able to, if you need to, if you need to tap into the rage and anger and revenge and all these kinds of things, she could do that. She's really good at that. If the moment calls for love and compassion and forgiveness, she can do that as well. The Waite the Waite card, doesn't include a weapon. She seems fully interested in this cup, this very nice ornate cup, and she's generally described as being only an individual of, temperance, forgiveness, uh, caring, love, support, that kind of stuff. So depending on which one you go by, um, I think you can get some pretty different interpretations from what this symbolizes. Now, both of them are pretty similar in the sense that if you're thinking about the interpretation of the obstacle of the Eight of Cups, and this is like turning your back from these these perfect, completely emotional states, which do require, and entail, um, not an insignificant amount of surrender. All of the perfect all of the balanced cards, um, they they inhibit the ability of the individual to do things, to choose, to exercise free will. They're very ordered, and in that sense, they're very consuming and overpowering, right? So it's not like this is like a weird thing to turn away from this potentially, but um, but yeah, nonetheless, insofar as something like this Eight of Cups can cause stress and mixed feelings and not being able to decide whether to, you know, go with something or resist it. Um, both of these both of these queens symbolize um, an internally directed management of, you know, of the emotional economy. So regardless of whether this individual meets the task um, with compassion and endless forgiveness, or whether this person, you know, behaves in what she considers the, you know, she takes the appropriate measures one way or another. This is I think this does symbolize an individual that is inwardly directed, that is ignoring the outside world, ignoring the outside elements, and focusing on managing their own internal world of feelings, emotions, intuitions, and so on. So I think the opportunity here is to take a little time out. Take a little time out, sit down, maybe like the queen on the right, the Waite queen, maybe somewhere nice by the water, by some nice calm lake, outdoors, and meditate on, you know, this cup that encapsulates what you have inside you, what those feelings are. You know, the cups generally symbolize us. We are the vessels. We're the containers. So yeah, so just go somewhere, pay attention to it. In a way, that's a big difference between the two queens. The Marseille card is, you know, she's holding it. She's not really looking at it. It's like she commands both the cup and the dagger. But but yeah, I think the opportunity here is to focus on managing the internal, which by extension means, you know, maybe not spending too much time worrying about um, what other people are thinking or feeling, or trying to guess at the external, you know, for the time being. And in general, I think it's pretty good advice. Um, you know, things the more directly to you something relates, generally the more ability you have to influence its change, control it, do things about it, shape its course. Obviously, to some, you know, there are limits, but yeah. So I think this is like focus on the internal. I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks for watching. Drop me a like or a comment if you would like to be entered into the weekly draw for a free one-on-one tarot chat reading. Thanks for listening. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.